Predictably Irrational, The Hidden Forces That Shape Our Decisions by Dr. Dan Ariely. This book explores the ways in which our decisions and behaviors are influenced by unconscious biases and emotions, rather than rational thought. Throughout the book, Ariely uses a variety of experiments and examples to illustrate his points and offer insights into how we can better understand and overcome our irrational tendencies. Chapter 1: The Truth About Relativity. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our perception of value is influenced by the context in which it is presented. He argues that we often make decisions based on the relative value of different options, rather than their objective value. For example, if we are given a choice between 3 options, and the second option is much more expensive than the first, we are likely to choose the first option even if it is not the best value for our money. This is because we perceive it as a better deal in relation to the more expensive option. Ariely offers several examples of this phenomenon, such as the pricing of different subscription options for The Economist magazine. When presented with a choice between a web-only subscription for $59, a print-only subscription for $125, or a web and print subscription for $125, the majority of people chose the web and print option, even though it offered no additional value. This is because the more expensive option made the other option seem like a better value by comparison. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how the context in which you present your product or service affects customers' perception of its value. Be careful not to create options that are too similar in value, as this can lead to decision paralysis. Offer clear and simple pricing options that are easy to compare and understand. Chapter 2: The Fallacy of Supply and Demand. In this chapter, Ariely argues that the traditional economic model of supply and demand is flawed because it assumes that people always act rationally in response to price. He points out that people's perception of value is influenced by a variety of factors beyond price, such as social norms and expectations. For example, he describes an experiment in which he and his colleagues offered a group of students a chance to bid on a range of items, including a bottle of wine, a textbook, and a box of chocolates. They found that when the price of the wine was artificially inflated, students were willing to pay more for it, even though its objective value had not changed. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a sense of social proof and urgency around their products or services. For example, by highlighting the popularity of a particular product or emphasizing the limited availability of a sale, businesses can influence customers' perception of its value and create a sense of urgency to buy. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how social proof and scarcity can be used to create a sense of urgency and value around your products or services. Be aware that customers' perception of value is not solely based on price, and consider other factors such as social norms and expectations in your pricing and marketing strategies. Don't be afraid to experiment with pricing and marketing strategies to see what works best for your particular product or service. Chapter 3: The Cost of Social Norms. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which social norms influence our behavior and decision-making. He argues that we are often willing to pay a higher price or endure more inconvenience in order to adhere to social norms and avoid social disapproval. For example, he describes an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked people to join a long line to use a photocopier. They found that when a Confederate in the line made a request to cut in front of them, most people agreed to let them, even if it meant waiting longer themselves. This is because we are often willing to pay a social cost in order to maintain our social relationships and adhere to social norms. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by tapping into customers' desire to conform to social norms. For example, by emphasizing the popularity of a particular product or service, businesses can create a sense of social proof that can influence customers' decision-making. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how social norms influence your customers' behavior and decision-making, and how you can tap into this to create a sense of social proof and loyalty around your products or services. Be aware that customers may be willing to pay a social cost in order to adhere to social norms, and consider how you can make it easy and convenient for them to do so. Build a strong brand that reflects the values and norms of your target customers, and use this to create a sense of identity and community around your products or services. Chapter 4: The Power of Price. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our perception of price can influence our perception of value. He argues that we often assume that higher-priced products are of better quality, even when there is no evidence to support this. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked people to taste two different kinds of beer, one labeled as expensive and the other as cheap. In reality, the two beers were the same, but participants consistently reported that the expensive beer tasted better. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by using pricing strategies to influence customers' perception of value. For example, by offering a premium product at a higher price point, businesses can create the perception that it is of higher quality, even if there is no objective difference. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how your pricing strategy affects customers' perception of value, and experiment with different price points and pricing models to find the optimal strategy for your product or service. Be aware of the power of price to influence customers' perception of quality, and use this to your advantage by offering premium or deluxe versions of your product at a higher price point. Don't be afraid to experiment with different pricing strategies to see what works best for your particular market and audience. Chapter 5. The Influence of Arousal. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our level of arousal can influence our decision-making. He argues that when we are in a state of high arousal, we are more likely to make impulsive decisions and act on our emotions, rather than our rational judgment. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked participants to rate their level of sexual arousal, and then offered them a choice between receiving a small amount of money immediately or a larger amount of money at a later time. They found that participants who were in a state of high arousal were more likely to choose the immediate reward, even when it was a less optimal choice. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a sense of excitement and anticipation around their products or services. For example, by offering limited-time promotions or emphasizing the exclusivity of a particular product, businesses can create a sense of arousal that can influence customers' decision-making. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how your marketing and promotional strategies can create a sense of excitement and anticipation around your products or services. Be aware of the ways in which customers' level of arousal can influence their decision-making, and consider how you can use this to your advantage. Use scarcity and exclusivity to create a sense of excitement and urgency around your products or services. Chapter 6. Keeping Doors Open. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our tendency to keep our options open can lead to indecision and missed opportunities. He argues that when we have too many options, we become overwhelmed and unable to make a decision. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues offered participants a choice between a box of chocolates with 6 flavors and a box of chocolates with 30 flavors. They found that participants who were offered the box with 30 flavors were less satisfied with their choice and less likely to choose a chocolate again in the future, even if they like the one they chose. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by simplifying their offerings and reducing the number of choices available to customers. For example, by offering a limited selection of products or services, businesses can make it easier for customers to make a decision and feel confident about their choice. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how the number of options you offer affects customers' decision-making, and simplify your offerings to make it easier for them to choose. Be aware of the ways in which too many options can lead to indecision and dissatisfaction, and use this knowledge to design your products and services to offer a more streamlined experience. Use clear and simple decision-making processes, such as guided selling or step-by-step processes, to help customers make decisions with confidence. Chapter 7. The Problem of Procrastination and Self-Control. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our tendency to procrastinate can sabotage our goals and aspirations. He argues that we often prioritize short-term pleasure over long-term goals, even when we know that this is not in our best interests. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked participants to choose between receiving a small reward immediately or a larger reward at a later time. They found that participants who were asked to wait for the larger reward were more likely to give up and choose the smaller reward, even when it meant sacrificing a larger payoff in the long run. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a sense of immediate gratification around their products or services. For example, by offering immediate rewards or instant gratification, businesses can motivate customers to take action and overcome their tendency to procrastinate. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how your products or services can offer a sense of immediate gratification, and use this to motivate customers to take action. Be aware of the ways in which procrastination and self-control can sabotage your goals and aspirations, and develop strategies to overcome these tendencies. Use rewards and incentives to encourage customers to take action and stay motivated. Chapter 8: The High Price of Ownership. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our attachment to our possessions can influence our decision-making. He argues that we often overvalue our possessions, even when they no longer serve a useful purpose. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked participants to sell back a coffee mug that they had just received as a gift. They found that participants who had just received the mug were willing to sell it for a higher price than participants who had received it several days earlier, even though there was no objective difference in the value of the mug. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a sense of ownership and attachment around their products or services. For example, by offering personalized or customized products, businesses can create a sense of attachment and loyalty that can influence customers' decision-making. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how you can create a sense of ownership and attachment around your products or services, and use this to build customer loyalty. Be aware of the ways in which customers' attachment to their possessions can influence their decision-making, and use this to your advantage. Use personalization and customization to create a sense of attachment and loyalty around your products or services. Chapter 9: Why We Overvalue What We Have. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our attachment to our possessions can influence our perception of their value. He argues that we often overvalue our possessions, even when there is no objective basis for doing so. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked participants to rate the value of a range of products, including a coffee mug, a chocolate bar, and a pen. They found that participants who were given the product and asked to rate its value later gave it a higher rating than participants who had not received the product. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by allowing customers to try their products or services before making a purchase. For example, by offering a free trial or a money-back guarantee, businesses can create a sense of attachment and loyalty that can influence customers' decision-making. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how you can allow customers to try your products or services before making a purchase, and use this to build customer loyalty. Be aware of the ways in which customers' attachment to their possessions can influence their perception of their value, and use this to your advantage. Use free trials or money-back guarantees to create a sense of attachment and loyalty around your products or services. Chapter 10: The Effect of Expectations. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our expectations can influence our perception of reality. He argues that we often see what we expect to see, even when it is not objectively true. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked participants to taste two different wines and rate which one they preferred. They found that participants consistently rated the more expensive wine as better, even when the two wines were identical. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a sense of positive expectations around their products or services. For example, by emphasizing the quality and value of a particular product, businesses can create a sense of positive expectations that can influence customers' perception of its value. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how your marketing and branding strategies can create a sense of positive expectations around your products or services. Be aware of the ways in which customers' expectations can influence their perception of value, and use this to your advantage. Use positive expectations to create a sense of excitement and anticipation around your products or services. Chapter 11: The Power of Placebo. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our beliefs and expectations can influence our health and well-being. He argues that the placebo effect is a real and powerful phenomenon, in which our beliefs and expectations can produce real physiological effects. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues gave participants a placebo pill that they claimed would reduce pain. They found that participants who believed they had taken the real pill reported a significant reduction in pain, even though the pill had no active ingredients. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a sense of belief and expectation around their products or services. For example, by emphasizing the effectiveness of a particular product or service, businesses can create a sense of belief and expectation that can influence customers' perception of its effectiveness. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how your marketing and branding strategies can create a sense of belief and expectation around your products or services. Be aware of the ways in which customers' beliefs and expectations can influence their perception of effectiveness, and use this to your advantage. Use the power of belief to create a sense of confidence and trust in your products or services. Chapter 12. The Context of Our Character. Part 1. Why We Are Dishonest. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our behavior can be influenced by the context in which we find ourselves. He argues that we are more likely to act dishonestly when we perceive that our actions are justified or when we feel that we are not personally responsible. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked participants to solve a series of math problems and then self-report their scores, with a monetary incentive for higher scores. They found that participants who were reminded of their moral values before the task were less likely to cheat, even when given the opportunity to do so. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a sense of personal responsibility and moral accountability around their products or services. For example, by emphasizing the importance of honesty and integrity in their marketing and branding. Businesses can create a sense of personal responsibility and moral accountability that can influence customers' behavior. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how your marketing and branding strategies can create a sense of personal responsibility and moral accountability around your products or services. Be aware of the ways in which customers' behavior can be influenced by the context in which they find themselves, and use this to your advantage. Use the power of personal responsibility and moral accountability to create a sense of trust and integrity in your products or services. Chapter 13. The Context of Our Character. Part 2. Why We Are Dishonest. In this chapter, Ariely continues his exploration of the ways in which our behavior can be influenced by the context in which we find ourselves. He argues that we are more likely to act dishonestly when we are surrounded by other people who are also acting dishonestly. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked participants to roll a die and self-report the number that came up, with a monetary incentive for higher numbers. They found that participants were more likely to cheat when they saw a Confederate cheat first. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a culture of honesty and integrity within their organization. For example, by emphasizing the importance of honesty and transparency in their organizational culture. Businesses can create a sense of accountability and peer pressure that can discourage dishonest behavior. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how your organizational culture can create a sense of accountability and peer pressure to discourage dishonest behavior. Be aware of the ways in which our behavior can be influenced by the context in which we find ourselves, and use this to your advantage. Use the power of peer pressure to create a culture of honesty and integrity within your organization. Chapter 14. Beer and Free Lunches. What is Behavioral Economics? In this chapter, Ariely provides an overview of the field of behavioral economics, which combines insights from psychology, neuroscience, and economics to better understand how people make decisions. He argues that traditional economic models, which assume that people make rational choices based on self-interest, do not accurately reflect human behavior. Instead, he suggests that people are influenced by a wide range of factors, including social norms, emotions, and context. Ariely suggests that businesses can use the principles of behavioral economics to their advantage by understanding the unconscious biases and emotions that influence customers' behavior. For example, by offering incentives or using social proof to influence customers' decision-making. Businesses can encourage positive behaviors and increase sales. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how the principles of behavioral economics can be used to influence customers' decision-making and encourage positive behaviors. Be aware of the unconscious biases and emotions that influence customers' behavior and use this knowledge to your advantage. Use incentives and social proof to encourage positive behaviors and increase sales. Chapter 15. The Problem of Procrastination and Self-Control. In this chapter, Ariely continues his exploration of the problem of procrastination and self-control, focusing on the ways in which we can overcome these tendencies. He argues that we can use a variety of strategies to help us stay motivated and focused on our goals, including setting clear deadlines, breaking tasks down into smaller pieces, and enlisting the help of others. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by helping customers overcome their procrastination and self-control issues. For example, by offering tools and resources to help customers stay motivated and focused, businesses can create a sense of accountability and support that can increase customer loyalty and engagement. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how you can help customers overcome procrastination and self-control issues, and offer tools and resources to help them stay motivated and focused. Be aware of the strategies that can be used to help overcome procrastination and self-control issues, and use this to your advantage. Use accountability and support to create a sense of loyalty and engagement among your customers. Chapter 16: The High Price of Ownership. In this chapter, Ariely continues his exploration of the high price of ownership, focusing on the ways in which we can overcome our attachment to our possessions. He argues that we can use a variety of strategies to help us detach from our possessions, including giving them away, selling them, or simply reframing our relationship to them. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by helping customers overcome their attachment to their possessions. For example, by offering trade-in programs or recycling programs, businesses can create a sense of detachment and environmental responsibility that can increase customer loyalty and engagement. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how you can help customers overcome their attachment to their possessions and offer trade-in or recycling programs to encourage detachment and environmental responsibility. Be aware of the strategies that can be used to help overcome attachment to possessions, and use this to your advantage. Use detachment and environmental responsibility to create a sense of loyalty and engagement among your customers. Chapter 17: The Influence of Arousal. Why hot is much hotter than we realize. In this chapter, Ariely explores the ways in which our level of arousal can influence our behavior and decision-making. He argues that we often underestimate the power of our emotions and physical sensations, and that these can have a significant impact on our behavior, even when we are not consciously aware of them. He cites an experiment in which he and his colleagues asked participants to rate the attractiveness of various people, and found that participants were more likely to rate people as attractive when they were in a state of high arousal, such as after exercising or riding a roller coaster. Ariely suggests that businesses can use this knowledge to their advantage by creating a sense of arousal and excitement around their products or services. For example, by offering limited-time promotions or emphasizing the exclusivity of a particular product, businesses can create a sense of arousal and urgency that can influence customers' decision-making. Actionable steps for entrepreneurs. Consider how your marketing and branding strategies can create a sense of arousal and excitement around your products or services. Be aware of the ways in which customers' level of arousal can influence their behavior and decision-making, and use this to your advantage. Use limited-time promotions and exclusivity to create a sense of arousal and urgency around your products or services. In conclusion, Predictably Irrational provides further insights into the ways in which our behavior and decision-making are influenced by unconscious biases and emotions. By understanding the hidden forces of arousal and excitement, entrepreneurs can develop strategies to create a sense of urgency and exclusivity around their products or services, and use these to influence customers' behavior and increase sales.